Today we're going to look at a circuit breaker. This is a single pole thermomagnetic 20 amp circuit breaker. It is currently in the closed position. So I have my main lug, my line coming in, going through contacts, going through my action arm right here. From that action arm is going through the braided cable over to my trip mechanism. On that trip mechanism, the power is coming up through a thermocouple right here that is hooked to the bus that goes to my load terminal. This is a screw terminal. You'd put your wire in here, you'd tighten the screw down, and that would be your load. So if we open the breaker, you can see the action arm right here open up, pulling away from the line contact and opening the breaker, giving us a gap there. So let's reclose that breaker. You saw the action arm close up against the main lug contacts, creating continuity all the way through the breaker. Now if I have a thermal overload, which would be too much current for too long of a time for this breaker, the current would go through my load lug, up through my bus, to my thermocouple right here, which would heat up and cause my trip arm right here to move away from my trip mechanism, to move away from my trip arm and cause my trip arm to trigger. So to do that, we would have too much heat. That would heat up. It would take my trip arm, push it back away. You'd see my trip arm trigger and open up my action arm and open up the breaker. Now to reset that, I have to completely open the breaker. When I completely open the breaker, my trip arm reset. My action arm is still pulled away from the main, so there is no power going to my load side at this point in time. So I would take my handle, pull it to the closed position, and that would cause my trip arm, or my action arm, to close onto my main lug. Now if I have a short circuit, I would get a lot of inrush current coming into my load side, basically creating this trip action device to turn into an electromagnetic magnet, and it would cause this lever right here, this tripping mechanism right here, to be pulled into that arm, and that would trip my trip arm. So if we ended up with a short circuit, basically that arm would be pulled in, this would trigger, again opening up my action arm, opening up the breaker. And again, to reset that, I would completely open the breaker, which would reset my trip arm here, my trip lever, and then I would have to close the breaker to get the action arm to go up against my main lug to give me power again.